Why do women wear high heels? Is it to look taller? Is it to improve their posture? Or is it just to suffer for the sake of fashion? But wait, what if I told you that everything you think you know about high heels is backwards? They weren't designed for the runway. They weren't designed for women. And they definitely weren't designed for walking. High heels were originally created as tactical military gear for the deadliest soldiers on the planet. For centuries, the heel was the ultimate symbol of masculinity, power, and war. So here is the question. How did the manliest shoe in history become the most feminine accessory of the modern world? Why did kings fight to wear them? And why did men suddenly decide to stop? Welcome to Behind the Scenes. Let's rewrite history. To understand the origin of the heel, we have to leave the fashion runways of Paris and travel back over 1,000 years to the rugged terrain of Persia, modern-day Iran. In the 10th century, warfare looked very different. The Persian Empire possessed one of the most feared military units in the ancient world, the mounted archers. Imagine trying to shoot a bow and arrow while riding a horse at full gallop. It requires insane core strength and balance. If you are sitting flat in the saddle and your horse takes a sharp turn, you slip. If you slip, you miss your shot. Or worse, you fall off and die. The Persians needed a solution. They didn't care about fashion. They cared about physics. They needed a way to lock their boots into the stirrups, the metal loops you put your feet in. Enter the heel. By adding a block to the back of the boot, a soldier could hook his foot securely onto the stirrup. This simple innovation changed everything. It allowed the archer to stand up in the saddle, completely stable, and rain down arrows on enemies with deadly precision. Think of it this way. The first high heels were basically the ancestors of modern cowboy boots or the cleats worn by football players. It was performance footwear. If you look at ancient Persian artwork from this era, like bowl ceramics or paintings, you will see fierce warriors with distinct heels on their boots. To them, the heel was a symbol of killing power. So, how did these boots get from the battlefield to the ballroom? The answer lies in diplomacy and a bit of 17th century hype. Fast forward to the year 1599. The Shah of Persia, Abbas I, had a problem. He was fighting the Ottoman Empire and he needed allies. So, he decided to send a massive diplomatic mission to the courts of Europe, to Russia, Germany, and Spain. When the Persian diplomats arrived, they caused a sensation. You have to understand, in the late 16th century, Europe was obsessed with the exotic. The aristocrats were bored with their own fashion. Suddenly, these Persian men walk in. They are confident, they are exotic, and they are wearing these strange heeled boots that make them look taller and give them a unique, commanding posture. The European male nobility went crazy for it. It was the streetwear drop of the 1600s. Aristocrats started copying the shoes immediately. But here is the funny part. They didn't ride horses like the Persians. They didn't need the heels for shooting arrows. They just wanted the look. Wearing heels did two things for a European man. First, it made him taller, and in a hierarchy-obsessed society, height was literally power. Second, it proved he was rich. Think about it. You cannot plow a field in high heels. You cannot walk long distances in mud in high heels. If you are wearing heels, it tells the world, I don't have to work. I have servants who do that for me. The heel became the ultimate status symbol. It wasn't about gender yet. It was about class. Now, we cannot talk about heels without talking about the biggest influencer of the 17th century, the Kanye West of the 1600s. King Louis XIV of France, also known as the Sun King. Louis was the most powerful man in Europe. He built Versailles. He believed he was chosen by God, but he had a secret insecurity. He was short. Historians estimate he was only about 5 foot 4 inches, 6'3 meters. In a court full of tall noblemen, this was unacceptable. So, Louis took the Persian trend and dialed it up to 11. He started wearing 4-inch heels, 10 centimeters. Often these heels were decorated with miniature battle scenes depicted on the wood. But Louis went further. He wanted everyone to know that his heels were special. In the 1670s, he laid down the law. He decreed that only members of his inner circle were allowed to wear heels with red soles. Why red? Because red dye was expensive, and red meant martial power, the color of blood crushed under the king's heel. If you look at the famous portrait of Louis XIV by Hyacinthe Rigaud from 1701, he is posing proudly, showing off his legs in white stockings and his bright red heels. It's ironic, isn't it? Today, red-bottom shoes are the trademark of Christian Louboutin, a symbol of high-end feminine fashion. But 300 years ago, it was the trademark of a king asserting his dominance over other men. So, if heels were so manly, why did women start wearing them? And why did men stop? In the mid-1600s, there was a trend among women to adopt elements of men's fashion. It was a way of appropriating male power. Women started cutting their hair shorter, wearing hats that looked like military gear, and yes, wearing heels. For a while, everyone wore heels, but there was a difference. Men wore thick, chunky heels, think square toes. Women wore skinny, curvy heels. It was a unisex trend, but with distinct styles. Then came the turning point, the event that historians call the Great Male Renunciation. This happened around the Enlightenment, mid-18th century. Society's values began to shift. The old aristocracy was being criticized. Science, reason, and practicality became the new ideals for men. The idea was, a man should be rational. A man should be practical. A man should not be concerned with frippery, jewelry, or makeup. Fashion became a way to separate the genders strictly. Men's fashion moved towards the three-piece suit, dark colors, simple lines, flat shoes. Women, on the other hand, were seen by this new society as emotional, sentimental, and frivolous. Therefore, high heels, which were impractical and purely aesthetic, became labeled as women's wear. By 1740, men had mostly stopped wearing heels. By 1789, after the French Revolution, heels were basically dead for men. If you wore heels, you look like the old, hated aristocracy. You might get your head chopped off. So, men chose flat boots. Interestingly, heels almost died out for women too after the French Revolution. Everyone wanted to be humble. Flat slippers were the trend. So how did the high heel come back with a vengeance? We can thank or blame the invention of the camera and the Victorian era's obsession with erotica. In the mid-19th century, photography was invented. Pornographers quickly realized something interesting. When a woman wears high heels, her posture changes. Her back arches, her pelvis tilts forward, her calf muscles contract and look more defined. Basically, the heel exaggerates the female form. The stiletto as we know it, that thin metal spike, wasn't invented until the 1950s, using new technology from the aerospace industry. Before that, heels were wood and chunky. But once the thin steel heel was invented, it became the weapon of the femme fatale. It was no longer about riding horses. It was about sex. It was about danger. It was about the male gaze. However, the male heel never completely disappeared. It just went underground, or rather, out west. The American cowboy kept the tradition of the Persian cavalry alive. The cowboy boot has a distinct heel, and nobody would dare tell John Wayne that his shoes looked girly. Why? Because they were functional. And then we have the rock stars. In the 1970s, the Beatles, David Bowie, Prince, and Elton John brought the heel back for men. They used platform boots to challenge gender norms and reclaim that Louis XIV energy. They wanted to be larger than life. Today, we are seeing history loop back on itself. Look at the red carpets. Harry Styles, Jared Leto, and high-fashion brands like Balenciaga and Gucci are putting men back in heels. We are realizing that clothes are just pieces of fabric and leather. The meaning we give them, masculine or feminine, is just a story we tell ourselves. a story that changes every few centuries. So, the next time you hear the click-clack of high heels, don't just think about Vogue magazine. Think about the Persian archers aiming their bows. Think about the Sun King stomping around Versailles. And remember, the history of your clothes is often much stranger than the clothes themselves. This was behind the scenes. If you like this deep dive, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments, what other item of clothing should we decode next? The tie? The bikini? The pocket? Let me know. Thanks for watching.